Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Lynn Lucas.
Welcome back. I hope you all had a nice break. I actually spent the break trying to convince myself that I actually spoke with Richard Branson for 30 minutes on stage. That was wonderful, really. Fantastic gentleman. So yesterday we spent time on our 360 data management strategy and a series of announcements. And today we are going to dive deeper into a set of those. We are going to have another great keynote, which is going to be followed, of course, by our second full day of breakouts and labs. I've heard there's been a lot of good interaction and standing room only in some of them. And of course, let me give a plug right now. You're all going to get double vision tonight with a party this evening, so we're going to want to see you there. Before we get to those activities, though, we are going to now double-click on our topic around software-defined storage and how it's changing the data center. So yesterday, Mike did a great job of talking about some of the technologies that we're inventing and are announcing and how they're coming together to create more storage efficiency, ensure that you have options and choice for how you use storage, and how we're integrating that with some exciting new capabilities around machine learning. So to lead the discussion today and provide you with a deeper view and some demonstrations, it's my pleasure to welcome our newest Vice President of Product Management, recently from EMC, in fact, David Noy.
Thanks, Lynn. Appreciate it. So here I am, 1 month into my tenure in Veritas, but it's actually my third time in Veritas. I was an engineer in the 90s, came back as a product manager in the 2000s, and here we are running the storage, software-defined storage product line and appliances product line. And they asked me, can you come and do a breakout, or not breakout, actually a super session on the last day of the conference in Vegas, 1 month into your job. And by the way, we're going to put you after Richard Branson. And I thought, oh gosh, okay, pretty cool, let's do it. So big shoes to follow in. I did bring socks, so that's good. But you know, as I thought about it, like, how am I going to do this and make it compelling after what we saw was an amazing talk? And I went back through my notes. I took a public speaking class about 10 years ago. And as I was looking back on week 3 of the class, they said, you know, if you're ever following Richard Branson on the last day of a conference, what you should do is just have a 20-minute dialogue, a monologue with the audience, and that'll keep them completely engaged. I think that's what I wrote. It was kind of hard to read my writing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and keep it a little briefer. I'm going to go through some of the key challenges that I saw at EMC and one of the reasons why I came here to Veritas, because I think Veritas as a software vendor is uniquely poised to solve some of those challenges. And then we're going to take you through some of the products that we've either launched or in the process of launching, which I think are extremely exciting in the software-defined area. Now, IT vendors, I came from one, box pushers, are really struggling to push to keep up. They're talking about software-defined storage, they're talking about cloud, but they really want to continue to push boxes to the customers. But the challenges that are being created in a data center don't call for just pushing boxes, they call for something more intelligent. And you know, the reality is, things are changing. It presents a number of challenges. And as we saw in Richard Branson's talk, these challenges also create opportunities. Devastation can look at opportunities to go create more green infrastructure, more green environment, houses and technologies. Data centers are undergoing a number of challenges as well, and that creates opportunities for us. Those challenges include things like the applications are changing. Cost pressures are rising. Applications are going through application sprawl. And you have questions of how much do you want to own versus how much do you rent? And rent here means how much do I put in a public cloud? Now, no longer are we talking about building monolithic scale-up applications. We're not building databases. Well, we may still do it, but the new next generation data center that's transforming itself is not looking at how do I build this long scale-up stack of a database, fiber channel connected to a SAN. Now we're looking at different architectures, a shift to service-based architectures, architectures that consist of services or microservices that come together to form a solution. These are built on cloud-based frameworks, or even whether they're private cloud or public cloud. And you know what? It's not just about the data that they generate. The data matters, but it's about the metadata, the data that's inside that data. What makes that data important? That's what's critical. If you're just storing data and you forget the context of that data, it's not that relevant anymore. Now, the other thing is when I talk to customers, the ones that I'd talked to in the past, I talked to a lot of large enterprise customers, they're all under cost pressures. We heard Mike talk yesterday about some of the customers he's talked to who are looking to push or take $500 million to $1 billion out of their IT budget spend. That's not uncommon. I've talked to large banks who actually have taken $500 million out of their IT budget spend by switching to software-defined solutions, and that includes software-defined storage as an underpinning. You know, when you're going to try to shrink budgets to do more, there's a couple of ways to reduce cost. One of them is to reduce your infrastructure cost. And you can do that by either looking at, hey, look, when the branded vendors, box pushers, and I was one, sells you a solution, let's say it's a SAN array or a NAS array, usually it's with a 60 to 70% margin. But what is it? It's software and hardware glued together. Now, if you buy the hardware at commodity prices, typically at a much lower support rate, and you buy that software from a software vendor who can provide you best-of-breed enterprise-grade products, you put that together, you cut out the middleman, you can get to a much lower cost of a solution. So that's one way to bring the cost down. Sell a less expensive box. Sell something that you kind of put the best software, the best-of-breed hardware together and bring the actual cost down. Now, there's another way, which is that you can basically virtualize everything you own. And software-defined products help you do that. If you just have a single silos of our infrastructure, let's say you go put a flash block storage array in for one particular application, you might use 10, 20, 30% of it in year one, maybe 40, 50% in year two, and so on. It could take you 3, 4, 5 years before you get full utilization of that asset. By virtualizing, I can actually go and slice that asset up and make it available to multiple applications. And in fact, I can take it to the next level. Instead of just virtualizing my infrastructure by buying stuff and putting it in my data center, I can even just rent that infrastructure directly from a service provider, and that's where the public cloud provides us. So people have to make the decision of how do I rent versus how much do I rent versus how much do I own as another way of driving costs down. Now, the last thing I talked about was application sprawl. Here's the amazing stat. And I looked at one of my customers in my past life, and they're basically a large bank. They had 15 petabytes of SAN for Oracle test and dev environments. 15, what's the largest database I've ever seen? A couple terabytes? You know, so how was it? A couple thousand databases just for test and dev. This is an enormous amount of infrastructure. And it's hard to get a handle of. What do I have? When do I bring it up? When do I tear it down? You know, it's hard to guess the application requirements on day one, so you end up buying all this capacity with the expectation that my applications are going to take off and I'm going to consume it. So this creates application sprawl. Now, there's a number of frameworks that were introduced by cloud vendors to actually spin up and spin down services and make that a dynamic thing. You've heard about maybe Kubernetes, Docker, OpenStack. These are all technologies for building your own private cloud infrastructure that has a lot more dynamic life cycle built into it. And these applications are containerized, and that's what allows them to basically come up anywhere in your data center, come down. The resources can then be flushed or persisted somewhere. Now, those resources that are mission critical or actually important to your business need to persist that data in a way that they can actually access it when those applications come available again. If those applications are going to run anywhere, anytime, then how do I make sure that they have access to their data all the time? You could, or it's not going to work anymore, but in the old days, you would have a fiber channel, SAN, directly into your application, and it was zoned in, and you were good to go. But now, if your application is moving anywhere in a private cloud, that's not going to work. By the way, for those tier 1 applications that use fiber channel hard-coded zoning with SAN, we have a great product. InfraScale continues to be the world's leading high availability file system volume manager clustering capability. Fantastic product. But for the next generation of applications, you have to pick the solution that's right for you. And there's no one solution that's going to meet all your demands. And in fact, people are, for example, not just buying applications for the sake of buying applications, not just buying databases for the sake of buying databases. they're buying all kinds of different components that make up a business solution, whether it's an ERP system or a CRM system or what have you. And typically they're choosing based on the price requirements or the performance requirements or the capacity requirements or the data protection requirements, different pieces of infrastructure and architecture that they put together to form that solution. Because you have services that some of them are high performance services, they need very transactional performance. Some of them are going to be capacity oriented. And that gives you kind of a bit of a graph. So you should start to think about what are the types of products that slot in under those services. You can end up with a number of different products. Often in the storage space, we think of block, file, and object. And those basically have a different price profile. Block storage solutions are very high performance, and so you pay a lot. There's a performance premium. File systems tend to be larger, but they could have a lot of performance requirements because that might be a very active file system, and so you end up with a little bit of a better pricing, but a large area of capacity growth. And then there's this area where you put stuff for kind of retirement. It's the long-term retention, set it and forget it data, and that usually goes into it. Today, the typical thing is to put that into an object store because that's what keeps it as low cost as possible. Now, that creates a price curve, and if all you're doing is pushing boxes, which is what I was doing for the last 5 years, the reality is you're on this price curve that's automatically declining on a race to zero because you're just trying to one-up the other vendor on speeds and feed. Oh, I'm 650 KOPS. Oh, I'm 700 KOPS. Well, I'm 725. Okay, well, I can do it for a penny cheaper. What you really need to do is not just provide the infrastructure, you need to provide the intelligence on top of that infrastructure to do things that the enterprise cares about. That includes things like being able to make it easier, lubricate the movement to cloud, being able to protect that data, being able to crack it open and figure out what's inside it for compliance reasons. We heard a lot about GDPR and other things. So our approach at Veritas is to provide a data services approach to the infrastructure that we deliver. And what that means is that we're going to actually give you the capability to actually reach into that data and see what's in it. What's important about it? Why do I want to keep it? Why may I not want to keep it? Why is it okay to delete? Who do I need to ask before I delete it? Otherwise, you're just shipping another box. And it's how you accomplish this is by building policies, intelligent policies, with knowledge about what you have where, and what you have where could be on-prem or it could be in the public cloud. Now, to go a little bit deeper into some of the products that we've launched or are going to launch or we're going to talk about in the future, what I'd like to do is I'd like to invite to the stage Abhijit Dey. Now, Abhijit is the Vice President of Engineering for the Software Defined Group. And Abhijit and I have worked together now 3 times. This is our 3rd time working together. Him and his engineering team have brought some amazing products to market. And so Abhijit's going to join me and walk us through a little bit of some of what we're announcing and some of the capabilities that our products have. Abhijit, can you please come on stage? Abhijit.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you.
Okay. So, I have been in this company, Veritas, for a very long time. Feels like yesterday. 18 years straight. Came to this company. They're building some amazing cluster file system. We built the first cluster file system. I was a software developer in the storage engineering team, and I stayed that way. I'm still an engineer in the storage engineering team after 18.5 years. We built the first cluster file system which brought Solaris to life, Linux to life. HP UX, the default file system, is Veritas file system today. We built cluster file system and volume manager back in the days, and through our great engineering workforce, we managed to have all of you customers. So before I keep going, and we keep going, I want to have all the customers and partners that have been with us for 25+ years of storage journey. A round of applause for the customers and partners. So David, you talked about software-defined storage. We literally, in engineering, created software-defined storage. The term SDS did not exist back then. We created SDS before SDS was an industry term.
Okay.
So if you look at it, our on-premise solution, which is InfoScale today, like you talked about, it's a mission-critical, high-performance Oracle OLTP solution for bare metal. And we did great for 20+ years. We are still shipping the product. It's our flagship product. But like you said, applications are modernizing. Data center is evolving. Cloud and platform, containers, are putting pressure on us engineers to build storage architecture in a completely different way. You have to look at scale out. You have to look at high performance. You have to look at how can I, from the storage infrastructure, create an architecture that helps application to run. This is why, over the last few years, my engineering team, we have been really doing a lot of solutions architecture to really address the emerging needs of the business.
So Abhijit, that's great, and InfoScale is a fantastic product, but as I talked about, there's a lot of challenges, and those create new opportunities for new products, and I know that we're going to talk about some of them now, but as we do, I want to relate them back to the customer problems that I was talking about earlier. And specifically, I want to talk about 3 of the biggest challenges or 3 of the biggest opportunities that customers talk about, at least when they talk to me, about their data center. One is, how do I make it easy to use? Because simplicity is just absolutely king. If you make it easy, even if you don't match feature for feature a competitive product, I think you can sell that product. And number 2 is that, how do you reduce cost? We talk about shrinking budgets, we talk about getting more efficient. Costs are absolutely critical. And everybody's going to be looking at ways to reduce cost. And the last question is, relate our products back to choice. And choice could be everything from a consumption choice, software versus hardware, to how much am I actually going to keep on-prem and how much do I want to move off-prem. So while in the context of that, let's talk about block storage for a minute. So we did have a block storage product that we launched called Hyperscale. Why don't you walk me through that one and tell me about how it relates back to these specific problems.
Sure, David. So let me introduce you our new solutions architecture. So if you look at block storage, we have had block storage forever, right? We actually did block storage in InfoScale days. But the concept of block storage, where it caters to virtualization, where it caters to OpenStack, where it caters to containers, it's completely changed. The new architecture that has to be written, that we did over the last few years, is completely different from where we as engineers used to write before. So I'll explain the solution, but few things are important. What is important in today, like we are talking about, is how do you create a scale-out platform? It has to be scale-out compute. It cannot be scale-up anymore. Those days are gone. Second, you have to think about application sprawl, like we talked about. So it needs infrastructure sprawl too. And that's exactly the solution talks about.
So what problems does this product solve specifically?
So you talked about the buy and rent.
Yeah.
And you also talked about application sprawl. So now think about a solution that is so scale out that lets application like Netflix or Uber or Airbnb scale up and scale out. At the same time, the solution runs on private cloud. Could be OpenStack, could be containers, Kubernetes. But you want to have the solution bleed into a public cloud. Now you can actually use your buy versus rent proposal, which is, you know what, I have some data in my public cloud, Azure. How do I bleed into it from my on-prem? That's exactly what we are looking at.
So Abhijit, as the product manager guy, and does a great engineering explanation, I want to try and play it back and make sure I got it right, okay? So what I think I heard you say is that using the Hyperscale product, I can build a cloud platform in my private cloud for applications, spin them up, spin them down, potentially even push them and burst them into cloud infrastructure so that I have a scalable solution that can start small, grow large, but actually take advantage of the cloud as a way to actually burst my capabilities off-prem. Is that correct?
That's right, that's right. So Hyperscale, let's define it. It's an enterprise storage management solution for private cloud.
Excellent.
That private cloud you can do on whatever you want. OpenStack, these are platforms. Again, with our storage DNA, we are an agnostic provider. So we can work with any private cloud of your choice.
Well, Leo, that's great, and what I talked about is making it easy to use. So I'd love to see some screenshots. Maybe you could show me how easy it is to use this product.
Sure. So we can take you through real product snapshots, screenshots. You can see the Hyperscale for OpenStack live and running. Now, what's going on here is you can see how the compute and the storage has been separated. Now, why do we do it? It's kind of hard to show the entire demo here, but the idea is you don't want copies of your data when you're moving to flash data center, because copies are expensive. This architecture, by making sure there is a separation from the compute, which is the application where application runs, with the storage where you do disaster recovery or data protection, it separates those two planes. And that so reduces the copies that you want to keep in your data center. And that's huge.
It is huge, and a lot of customers will be looking for that in the block storage space. But you know what? Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about unstructured data. You know, it was only maybe 5 to 10 years ago that unstructured data crossed structured data, basically the file data crossed block data in the data center as being the capacity king. Now, unstructured data, file data makes up about 80% of data center capacity, and it's growing so fast, I would predict that in the next 5 years, it's probably in excess of 90% of data center capacity. Now, you know what? Scale-out file systems, they exist in hardware form factor, but building something that's software-defined, that's hard. If you look around and you look for a real enterprise-grade software-defined file system, scale-out NAS, I don't think there are any I can point to on the market that are really clear market leaders. What have we done? How have we made ourselves different? How have we stood out in that space?
That is exactly right. So if you look at file service, and our DNA is file-based storage for 20 plus years. Software-defined storage for file is extremely hard to get because file concept introduces semantics which are not easy to architect when you're talking scale-out. It involves deep computer science, deep algorithms that we have to really understand and deploy for getting a distributed architecture. So what we have done here is not only taking care of the file-based SDS, but the way SDS works is you have to give a policy-driven provisioning and management of storage infrastructure. That's really the definition of SDS, and other vendors have morphed that definition to their choice. But that's really what we engineers feel should be the definition of SDS. And access is the product.
Well, let me play that back for you again, the product management guy, make sure that I got it right to the engineer.
All right.
So I think what I heard is that the access product is a scale-out NAS, could be a gateway that lives on top of your existing infrastructure, or it could just be built on commodity server-based architectures, and then provide you through policies the ability to move data around between different tiers or capabilities of storage, or even move it off to the public cloud. Is that right? Am I playing it back?
That's exactly right. So let's also define Veritas Access. Access is a software-defined storage solution for unstructured data.
Let's take a look at it.
By the name Access, what you can do is you can access the data. It's simple. Anywhere it resides. It could be on-premise fiber channel SAN. It could be your flash. It could be your virtual private cloud. It could be your hybrid cloud or public cloud. Access provides a policy-driven storage management umbrella on the top of your infrastructure. And you can, like you said, you can bring in your infrastructure. You can build a commodity-based software-defined storage. Here, we are going through a demo. What we are doing here, David, for you, is we are picking up one use case, and for you customers and partners. One use case, what we are doing is this. We take your backup images, secondary data. Mike talked about yesterday about secondary data, how critical it will become. And we take those backup images, and the use case here is to store it, reduce tapes, eliminate tapes forever, store them into an on-premise file system like Access, and then ultimately tier them to Azure or any other public cloud. So you set up the policy, you pick your policy, it's one click. You pick your policy what you want, which addresses your use case, and you deploy it. The solution, Veritas Access, employs it, enforces it, and now you're good to go. You now have a long-term retention strategy for your secondary data.
That's pretty impressive that we could build something that feature-rich in a software product that can be deployed on existing infrastructure or server infrastructure. And I love hearing it from you, the engineering guy. But you know what? Let's make it a little bit more real. Why don't we bring a customer to the stage to talk about it? You okay with that?
Sure.
So I want to invite to stage the CEO of Fairbanks. Now, Fairbanks is both a partner and a customer of Veritas. The CEO is a good partner with us, worked with us over the years on software-defined storage. I'd like to invite Ruud Harmsen to stage. Ruud from Fairbanks, tell us a little bit more about our software-defined products. Hey.
Hi, David.
Thanks for coming.
Abhijit.
Hi, Ruud.
Hi. Well, thank you for having me.
So Ruud, for the benefit of the audience, can you take us through a little bit about what Fairbanks is? What do you do? What does Fairbanks do?
Well, my name is Ruud Harmsen. I'm the founder and CEO of Fairbanks. We are a European IT company, and our head office is based in the Netherlands. We provide our customers with professional and managed services on building their private clouds on OpenStack. And we have customers in Europe, but also here based in the US.
Cool.
So Ruud, I know we have been working together. What's your software-defined strategy?
Well, within Fairbanks, we definitely believe in software-defined technology, because if you separate hardware from your software, it will give you absolutely scalability for your data center. So, yeah, as I said, we definitely believe in that strategy. And we spoke a lot about cost savings. A product like Access for a software-defined storage solution, it will definitely help saving costs in your data center.
You're not going to be paying 70 points of margin to those box pushers, eh? Well, okay, so let me ask you one more quick question. You know, we were talking the other day, you mentioned something about, hey, you know, the advantage of Veritas is that you can take advantage of not just a software-defined storage product, but actually the integration with a set of our suite, and then product suite, and then how that differentiates for people looking at private cloud and public cloud. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that's a good question. When I bring my workload to your public cloud, you have a public cloud, and I bring my workload to your public cloud, we agree about price and we agree about an SLA, but then it's your responsibility. But I'm definitely sure that there are workloads you never want to run in your public cloud. So you want to build your private cloud. But if you have your public cloud, you want to be sure you have a good backup solution, you have a good disaster recovery solution, and based on storage, you want to have a good quality of service. So, well, I think if you compare that with the products of Veritas, I definitely will be sure you can achieve what you want.
So that's great. I mean, we have a lot of those product capabilities. Data protection is obviously in our heritage, and linking them into the software-defined portfolio is important. And I'm glad that you picked us. But there's a number of software-defined vendors out there. So tell me, Ruud, why Veritas? What's so special about us?
Well, let me tell you a little story. 3 years ago, I received a phone call from your colleagues from Veritas. And they asked me, well, Ruud, you are an expert, or your company is an expert in OpenStack. Are you willing to help us to give us more expertise in OpenStack, because we want to build a new product which is called Hyperscale? So Eric Kessels, my CTO within Fairbanks, and his team did a tremendous job to help the engineers within Veritas to learn more about OpenStack, to get a product ready, which is Hyperscale, which is ready right now. And just for you, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to learn more about Hyperscale and OpenStack, this afternoon there is a session together with Eric and Carlos Carrero from Veritas. So don't forget to see that. So after 3 years, and last year, I had the opportunity to meet Mike Palmer. And he came to Amsterdam. And Mike, he said to me, Ruud, he wants to learn more about Fairbanks, of course, and he wants to say thank you for what we've done the last 3 years. And now it's coming on trust. And Mr. Coleman, I heard him yesterday speaking about trust. He said to me, Ruud, if I can help you, then give me a phone call. And in January, I made that phone call to Mike Palmer. And I said, Mike, can you help me? Because we as Fairbanks, we want to become an OEM partner with the Veritas products. And he said, yes, I will help. And he kept his promise. So for that reason, I'm very proud to be a partner of Veritas. And I tell you, we are definitely ready to do a lot of business together.
Well, that's great. So that trust that we built is fantastic. And I'm glad we keep our promises. So it's great working with you. And I look forward to working with you some more.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Yesterday we saw a lot of monsters, so I had to bring my obligatory monsters to come and join me too. And so here we are, The Walking Dead, okay? Now what's the Walking Dead of data? When you're done with data, where do you put it? Well, oftentimes the answer is go stick it in an object store. Yeah, the object store, it'll take it. We put it into the object store and data just keeps going in and in and in. And as data goes into an object store, it loses its identity. It actually loses its mind. It becomes the Walking Dead. It's the zombie of data world. Actually, that data has a little ID. It's like a 128, 64 characters, something meaningless dribble that basically is attached to it. But that data just sits there chewing up resources in your data center or in your public cloud, for which you get a bill every quarter or month. and it, for all intents and purposes, is useless. The question is, that I want to know is, how do we turn these beautiful people back into productive members of society? How do we put the brains back into the zombies, the walking dead of data? If we're going to look at object stores, can we build one that actually puts the brains back in?
Yeah. Before that, this is the most funniest engineers can get. So, so let's talk about object store, right? Object store has been around for a long time. I mean, we have had object stores, other vendors ship it. You do object store for what? For capacity. It's an archival solution, like you said. Zombies, you create zombies of data. You hardly ever want to go back to the data. Even if you go back in 7 years for a compliance violation or some such things like that, you don't have a performance expectation, right? So that's object store of today. We wanted to really disrupt this. Like Richard Branson was talking about, let's do something which nobody can do. So that's really the idea here. And as we are emerging as a storage business, once again, we say, you know what, anybody solves scale. Massive scale unstructured data, like you said, David, it's going through the roof. So we wanted to not solve scale for megabyte, petabyte capacity. So we said, you know what, let's really fix it. We solved, so math, 1,000 petabytes is a zettabyte. So if you look at a zettabyte, that's going to fill this entire half of this hotel and Las Vegas arena, right? So that's a lot of data. We said we'll not settle for megabyte or petabyte or something like that, or exabyte. We'll go all the way to zettabyte. So in the object store that we're working on today, we can support up to 1 zettabyte of storage. That's scale, but that was easy for us. We said, you know what, everybody goes for scale. It's speeds and feeds, like you said.
Yep.
So how do we disrupt it? We said, well, nobody is able to know the intelligence of the data. Data is really important and usable if you can take the intelligence of the data and store right next to it. So we said, let's classify the data, index the data, crack open those objects, get the intelligence out, and keep it with the data so you can access the intelligence and create rich metadata. Now you can bring brains to your zombies.
All right, well, that's pretty cool. Let's go through a real life example. I mean, we just heard Richard talk about the hurricane devastation. And I think, as I recall reading in the news, these telcos where the cell towers were down needed a way to determine the health of those cell towers, and they sent drones out to look at them and inspect them and look for damage. And that's because every minute counts in those kind of situations. Let's give an example of a telco, here through the Northeast in this case, and they basically are sending drones out on a nightly basis and gathering all kinds of telemetric information. These telemetry informations are packets of data. They come back as objects for all intents and purposes. Now, there could be millions of them collected from every zone, every night, from every drone, sorry. And the drones then go back to the data center and beam that information down. That information, just packets of telemetric information, goes into the NOC, where basically it's going to be analyzed to look for things like faults or areas of optimization. Tell me a little bit about how our object solution can put the brains back in an object store for that kind of a solution.
That's a great use case, and that's exactly right. So let's keep going. So now your drones have dumped zillions of data. We got all the data in our object store. This is the data. This is a live 128 node system running with the data dumped from those drones that David was talking about. Now, why are we doing this? This is a 2 data center, one in Santa Clara in Silicon Valley, the other in Dublin in Ireland. You can see the data flying. These are objects, real objects. This is the visualization UX that you got. So if you double click on any of those data centers, you will see those data node clusters. These are actual data objects flying between these nodes. Now, we got that part taken care of. Now the data is in the object store. Now we distribute the data center across geographies. We erasure code them, so we optimize storage. We use very modern techniques like columnar storage to store them based on data types. And now you have the entire capacity of your drone data and the classification of it, because while we ingest it, we classify the data. So now let's say in your example, a cell phone tower can have thousands of machines. Could be a PLC, could be an electric motor, a computer, everything can fail. So drones pick up that data and send it to this data center, to the object store. You have to analyze what kind of failure has happened. Who is the provider? Who is the vendor for that machine? So now you can say, well, one of the motor in my tower failed, and I am going to trigger GE or somebody who made that equipment for predictive maintenance. This is a precursor to a predictive IoT maintenance subsystem. Now your zombies are really functioning and brainy.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. So now you've taken an object that was just this dumb zombie repository of Walking Dead data. You put the brains back in, and these guys can use it for primary storage, actually for real-time analytics on their environment. Wow, that's pretty cool. I don't think of any object stores that actually do that on the market today. I'd love to have one. Abhijit, tell me something. When is this product going to GA? Because I think everyone here would like to have that.
I know Mike announced it, and we engineers, we do tough work. This takes time. David, and my PM wants a date. I'm sorry, I can't give you a date. I can't comment.
Okay, so typical engineering doesn't want to commit to a date. So I have an idea. Here we are, Vision 2017. Why don't we just announce it? If we announce it, then you guys have to deliver it, right? Isn't that how it works?
Okay, well, whatever. You are the PM, right. You do whatever you want. Oh.
So we heard about it yesterday, but I want to officially announce the Veritas Cloud Storage platform. Now, Veritas Cloud Storage is exactly what Abhijit described. It's an object store that has the brains back in the actual data, but it's more than just that. It's software defined. And not only that, it can consume data and categorize data that maybe is on-prem as well as off-prem. So it could be just a front end to a public cloud where you have all of your data there to provide information about what you have on-prem, off-prem, or even in assets that you have physically located, but provide a single management pane of glass for your entire object infrastructure.
That's all in. Yep, that's exactly right, David.
All right, perfect. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it, and your engineering team's working really hard. So thanks so much.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on board.
Yep.
Thanks. Look forward to working with you some more.
Don't go anywhere. Third time is the last time.
Third time's the charm. All right. So we just launched Veritas Cloud Storage, and now what I'd like to take you through is another concept that we talked about earlier, which is giving customers choice. And that's choice in terms of buying a software, because our legacy, our heritage and DNA is in building software-defined products. But we know that customers sometimes want to buy those in a hardware appliance form factor. It's just easier. You roll it in, you plug it in, you turn it on, you're good to go. And for that reason, we're going to provide hardware appliance form factors and give users choice for all of our software-defined products. As we go into that, I really want to emphasize that we're doing this at an extraordinarily fast pace. And in fact, Mike talked about the Access LTR appliance yesterday. I actually brought one. So it's right there underneath the black curtain. But before I take the curtain off, we could not have done this ourselves. We absolutely have a heritage as best-of-breed enterprise software provider. That said, we had to partner with a best-of-breed enterprise hardware provider to do exactly what I talked about earlier. Instead of you paying 70 points of margin to your favorite vendor, EMC, HP, you name it, for a product that's actually pre-packaged, we're going to work together with an enterprise best-of-class hardware vendor with our software and give you a much more low-cost solution with all of those brains put back in, the data classification and the integration with our data protection products. To achieve that, I want to welcome to the stage Dana Kammersgaard, who's the Executive VP from Seagate for the Cloud Solutions Group. Dana, will you please come and join us? Dana? Thank you.
Good morning, David. Hey, I thought about walking out like this, but we have way too much brains for that.
It is Wednesday morning. Hey, so Dana, tell me something. Seagate is known for hard drives. I think I have a couple of Seagate drives at home, actually. But not typically known for enterprise-grade, actually server-based solutions and storage-based chassis solutions. Tell me a little bit about your group.
Yeah, so I'll bet there's not very many people in the audience that don't know the Seagate brand, and for the most part know us as a hard disk drive manufacturer, having shipped over 1 billion spindles, 1 billion units today.
Wow.
I'll bet there's a whole lot less people that know that Seagate is a world-class storage systems provider. Part of that is because we are an OEM-focused company, right? And we don't necessarily build out our brand in that context. But over the last 4 years, we've been quietly assembling a nice list of assets with an awful lot of intellectual property, starting in 2013 with the acquisition of Xyratex. That's a name that some might know. 2 years ago, Seagate acquired my company. I was the CEO of Dot Hill Systems. And in aggregate, we've shipped over 1 million arrays. of various sorts.
That's awesome. So it sounds like the perfect partner for us to put our best-of-breed software, peanut butter, with your best-of-breed hardware, chocolate. It sounds like a great combination.
Yeah, and you know, what I realized early on in the acquisition was that we owned both ends of the wire. We owned all of the intellectual property from the device up. And as a result, we can build a more reliable, a faster, a better, more feature-rich product for a whole lot less, or more value, as my marketing guy likes to remind me, than most anybody else.
Well, tell me a little bit about the partnership with Veritas then. Like, what have we done together? And I'm coming up to speed on this too. How does that partnership work, and how do you see it progressing?
Yeah, it starts with culture, honestly. I'm a big believer in bilateral partnerships. I'm not a big believer in supplier-customer relationships. Bill and I have known each other for 15 years at least. Back when he was at Sun Micro and I was an OEM supplier of storage to Sun Micro. And it moves from a common culture to a common vision. Awesome. And you know, I've known Veritas, and I'll bet a lot of you guys have been long-term Veritas customers. I mean long-term, which is pre-semantic days, right? And I, for one, was very happy when Veritas became a standalone company again. Veritas has a tremendous wealth of innovation, IP, products that have been installed in millions of instances of their own, a tremendous brand. And it's not your father's Veritas either, David, at this point. I mean, the Veritas cloud storage, access, scale-out NAS, et cetera, a tremendous company with a great set of products. We're thrilled to be working with you. We think we bring a lot to the table from a hardware point of view at the same time, but we have collaborated very closely. We have analyzed your workloads together. We have measured your use cases and studied them together. I've had software development engineers in your Mountain View facilities. We have fast-tracked this program over the course of 9 months, and together we have built a much better, more integrated, more reliable, more performant product than you can otherwise get on the market today.
Well, it seems like we're going to bring a whole lot more of them to market, but right now we actually have our Access LTR appliance here. Do you want to help me take the curtain off?
Yeah, you bet. Let's do that.
All right. So this is the new Access LTR appliance in conjunction with Seagate and Veritas. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. That's it.
Very nice.
Excellent. It's a beautiful thing. So, you know, tell me something, Dana. I mean, that's a beautiful piece of machinery. I think Mike challenged me to have it by early next year, but here it is, like, you know, ready to go. I don't know. This is not really a sale unit just yet. But that said, tell us a little bit about what this thing can do. What are the capabilities of this particular unit?
Well, for starters, it'll support 840 terabytes today. For those of you who are as old as I, and I don't see too many people in the crowd that old, but I remember when a terabyte took up a full rack and was $1 million. This box here will support 840 terabytes, and very soon we'll go to a petabyte in this particular form factor, with tremendous performance. As a standalone unit, it will support 7 gigabytes a second of reads, 5.5 sustained gigabytes of writes, and with access or with the virtual cloud, the Veritas cloud storage with scale-out capability. You should think about virtual, David. That's not a bad use of the V either. You know, you can scale to hundreds of nodes, if not thousands of nodes, and your performance scales linearly. This product is active-active failover. We've installed 400,000 or 500,000 of predecessor products. I measure weekly over 100,000 units in the installed base with 6 nines of reliability. So we're not just claiming 6 nines of enterprise-class availability. We can demonstrate it, we can prove it, and with the Veritas stack on top, it gets even better than that.
That's pretty cool. So let me ask you a question. If I'm using this as a long-term retention repository for backup data, maybe behind a net backup estate, you know, how much of this is really high density. It's a pretty big chassis, pretty dense. How much capacity could I get in a rack? Let's just compare that to tape, for example, or even to, you know, to some of the other solutions that are out there. What do
You're
you
asking me to do math in real time?
Yeah, I'll test you here. What do you got?
You know, in the neighborhood of 5 petabytes.
5 petabytes in a rack.
Of usable
Okay, that's
space.
pretty impressive. 5 petabytes of long-term retention capacity in one rack. Awesome, love it. So this is a great product, and I really appreciate your partnership, and thanks so much. Look forward to bringing a number of new
We're thrilled to
products.
be here. We're very excited about what you guys are doing. Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Dana. So there you had it, 2 big announcements and kind of with a little more detail, the Veritas Cloud Storage product and what it is, putting the brains back in that zombie data, making object storage high performance and actually usable with categorization, as well as a workflow engine, analytics built in. And then the Veritas Access LTR appliance, which you can see here, available early next year. You know, this next generation of file, block, and object products shows that we're innovating very fast. We're bringing to market at a rate faster than any of our competitors products that are built for today's environments, today's application environments, whether they're private cloud, containerized environments, that they help to bring the cost of the environment down because they're software defined by nature, but by working with a partner like Seagate, we can bring low cost solutions to our customers. And then all of these products are cloud enabled. We know that people are going to move to the cloud. When you know, you asked the question, how many of you have a hybrid cloud strategy? The answer should be almost everyone. And what we don't want to do, because we're a software vendor, is get in the way of that. We want to lubricate the movement of data to the cloud, not be a friction point, because we sell software, right? Now, we will sell hardware, if we will sell appliances, if that makes it easier for you as an end user to consume our products. But at the end of the day, it's the intelligence and the software that we provide that glues together your infrastructure and then provides all of the data services, whether it's compliance, whether it's data classification, whether it's analytics, or whether it's data protection, to make your data enterprise grade, usable, and actually more than just brainless zombies. So with that, I'd like to thank you guys for coming to the Software Defined session, and I hope you had a great vision. There's 2 more Software Defined breakout sessions today, one on how to use our products with Amazon, and another one on how to use it in the context of OpenStack. Hope you joined those sessions, and I hope you had a great vision. Thank you.